What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me have some more RPG horror stories. Speaking of RPGs, I'm considering potentially streaming some of the sessions where I play D&D with my friends, so y'all can see exactly what kind of games are going on, and just in general share some of that experience. And I think it'd be kind of fun to at least record some of the games and maybe, I don't know, maybe turn them into videos. I don't want the channel to be specifically a live plays channel, but I think it'd be fun to do something outside of just RPG horror stories the whole time. Like RPG horror stories being like as the main thing, and also side content for like proper D&D stuff. Because I mean, I don't want to be just RPG horror stories channel. I want to be a D&D channel. Speaking of D&D, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. I think most of them are D&D related. The worst player and DM I've ever had. So there's this person. I'll call them Morrow guy. He was the second DM I've ever had, and part of the first player group I've ever DM'd for. My first campaign with him was a bit of a wildfire. The setting didn't make any sense, which caused the player group to take a long while to actually get it united, and all of his NPCs were what you expect from an emo boy who's actually the main character, and everyone else are just secondaries. And I really mean this. Every single one of Morrow guy's NPCs were like that. Anyway, he lost interest in DMing that campaign after 3 awkward sessions. After that, I decided that I wanted to DM for a bit. I made the first session with the same player group from Morrow guy's campaign, except that he was playing now too. Everyone else made a normal character whose backstories fit with the level they just started at. Except for Morrow guys. Everyone was told they were going to start level 1, by the way. His character, just like any other one that he made, was a main character. He was just rude to everything and everyone and talked like Shadow the Hedgehog from Sonic Adventure 2. I actually don't know what Shadow the Hedgehog sounds like. I know it's like, you know, I know the archetype of main character edge boy. Basically, gravelly voice, demeanor. You hate everything, dislike everything, and you sound like a stuck-up snob. I guess like the example of somebody who thinks somebody that would sound cool. I don't know. I feel like Shadow the Hedgehog was kind of a... Wasn't Shadow the Hedgehog just kind of a psychopath? Wasn't like an edgy cool guy, just kind of a crazy dude that just off his rocker? I don't know my Sonic lore, so I could be completely off base. Maybe he actually had a reason. Maybe he actually had a motivation. Maybe he was actually a very deep and important character. Who knows? But I get the archetype. We all have seen the main character, edgy character archetype, emo character. I've seen too many of them on VR chat. Too many VR chat e-boys out there trying to be edgy and cool. Let's continue. It was frustrating to say the least, and everyone else was clearly annoyed by this. Anyway, he later gave up on playing the campaign after they defeated the first boss, because apparently, I don't like my character anymore, was good enough of a reason for him to ask me to reset the campaign. Everyone, including me, said yes, because we just wanted him to shut up. You know, he has a choice. Okay, so for anybody out there that is a main character or has a main character syndrome, if you know somebody that has a main character Edgelord syndrome, send him this part of the video. Clip it, ship it, whatever. Send him this video. You know that as a main character Edgelord, you have the option to just not have your character be a main character Edgelord. Wow, what a revelation. What a crazy revelation you heard from a random tiefling on the internet, huh? You have the choice and the ability to just not have your character be obnoxiously stupid or callous or just difficult to be around. You have a choice behind that. You can choose not to have your character be a pompous ass. You can choose not to have your character be insufferable. You can choose not to have your character be absolutely obscenely ridiculously difficult to be around and deal with. Instead of having to reset the entire campaign just because you don't like your character for whatever reason, you just choose to change your character, like how you present them. Maybe they have character development. There we go. Use that moment and element to basically make him be less of an edgy, stuck-up edgelord main character to being somebody relatable, to being somebody that actually relies on a party, somebody that doesn't work solo, somebody that you actually can have as a character and enjoy playing, and everybody else at the party can also enjoy playing with you as well. But no, we gotta reset the entire campaign because you're not happy with your character. Maybe you're not happy that your character doesn't get all the attention and stuff. So now we gotta reset the entire campaign and sunset everything. Fun. Let's see how this ends. I had to reset the same campaign 4 times because of him. That is your choice to reset the campaign 4 times. You know, you have the option to say, no buddy, I'm not resetting it. We reset it already once, I'm not resetting it again. Either just change how you roleplay the character to not make him be a stuck-up a-hole, or bye-bye, I guess I'll talk to you later. You don't have to reset the campaign just for this one dude, just because he's not happy his character doesn't get showered with praise and attention. I had reset the same campaign 4 times because of him. I was obviously making a different start of story every time, so it didn't get boring. After he asked me to reset it a 5th time, I just gave up. After a few months, Maku guy called everyone saying that he wanted to DM again. I was kind of happy I would get to play again, and so was everyone else. He gave up after the first session. We're still friends? Not really, but one of the friends I go to the group is really close to Maku guy, so I just have to tolerate him. But I'm never going to play or DM any campaign that remotely involves him. Not that it matters since he managed to suck all the fun out of the tabletop RPGs for me. It's a very important lesson to know that problem players exist, and if the problem player's behavior doesn't change, you do not invite the problem player to your game. You just completely remove him from the game, ask him not to show up, tell him that he's not welcome at the table because you want to continue with the game and not have to reset it every single time. If he's not happy with his character, he can just leave if he doesn't want to just change the way he plays the character. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this guy could have chose to just play his character differently, maybe rewrite some parts of the backstory to be a little different and just kind of roll from there and not just be such an a-hole to be around and have fun. But no, they chose what I want to do for my character is the most important thing ever, and I want you to reset it, DM. Reset the game just for me. Don't play with problem players like this, but also don't just reset the game for problem players. If you want the problem player to be there because you like the other players there, that's one thing, and you can probably tolerate some of the behavior, but not if you're gonna have to reset the entire game. Please do not do this to yourself. If they don't like the character, just play it differently so that I'm not a jerk that's insufferable by everybody. But also, don't just capitulate to them and reset the entire campaign. You have other people that want to play and have a good time, and you having a good time. Your time also is valuable. Don't just reset everything just for this one idiot. Anyway, let's continue with the next story for today. Self-Insert Pervert can't take consequences in a sandbox RPG. I run a mature open-ended sandbox RPG with a focus on realistic consequences, complex in-universe dynamics, and living world which changes and functions on its own and doesn't inherently revolve around any of the player characters. Before I allow anyone to join, they receive a very serious and clear content warning. While the game doesn't inherently revolve around dark or grotesque elements, they very much so can be part of it, including stuff like gruesome and detailed deaths, psychological suffering and trauma, sexual violence, etc. Before anyone is allowed to join, I ask them what they don't want to see. See, a disclaimer like this is not that difficult if you have these kind of themes in your game and because you like running these kind of themes in your game, because you find that stuff entertaining, you know, morbidly interesting. At least as long as you give everybody a disclaimer of what is going on, you're saying this kind of stuff, the rough topics, they're not off the table because I do want to explore them a little bit sometimes in story fashion. But at least you give players a disclaimer. It's definitely better than DMs that say, hey, no, the game is going to be just fine, and it's only just sexual violence everywhere. Let's continue. So a new player comes along and asks to join. Ask him a bunch of questions. He seems very enthusiastic to join and said that he's fine with everything. All seems good. In character creation, he proceeds to make a character that has the same name and personality as he does, and maxes out everything in the charisma and willpower stats. His character here, as per their stats, is supposed to be extremely persuasive, very handsome, and mentally unbreakable. Unfortunately, he had no idea how to actually roleplay those stats correctly. Despite his stats, he'd often say things that are very awkward, overly submissive, or even kind of rude. Roll a very high number and then gets confused or frustrated when the NPC did not instantly like him or agree with everything he suggested. Which, speaking of, the willpower aspect. Every time something didn't go his way or seemed to have a grim outlook, he'd immediately get all defeatist and moody or panic and afraid, both in character and IRL. He'd just have these outbursts, all the while his character is supposed to have unshakable resolve. It was just a total disconnect. It was all made even worse by the fact that on top of this, the character was clearly just a self-insert of him, but with cool features or traits that he wished he had. Just because you make yourself as a self-insert with high charisma and high willpower doesn't mean that you're immediately gonna roleplay yourself as that specific thing. I mean, some people can definitely get away with it, right? Like me, I'm not an overtly flirty person, but I could definitely play flirt 100%. NPCs, player, whatever. I'm not overly gruff and tough or usually kind of like rude and mean, but can I play mean rude barbarian? Hell yeah, you betcha. You betcha sweet patootie, I definitely can. Can I play a dumb idiot tiefling? I'm doing it right now. And I don't want to say that I'm as dumb as Morrow, but I guess I'm a little bit smarter than Morrow and a little bit less jaded than Morrow is. But when it comes to playing Morrow, I'm a jaded son of a bitch. But if you're making a character, you also gotta understand that part of it is allowing yourself to kind of, you know, if you're making a character with a lot of charisma, you gotta have the it, right? You gotta have the moves, the swagger, the riz, as the kids like to say it. I hate the fact that I just said that. But just because you have high charisma, but you're just blabbering away, you can't get, like, talk yourself out of a paper bag, that kind of doesn't really help you, because as a charisma-based character, you're probably going to be expected to say things. You may say them a little bit awkwardly or whatever, and maybe get some really good roles in general, but the way you say things still matters. Because if you just blabber about, no matter how much high charisma you have, people can just ignore it and pretend like you said something super witty. I don't think it's a problem to make a self-insert and stuff, especially if you make it something that's like a more idealized version of yourself, especially if it's first time playing the game and everything. But there gotta be a moment where you need to learn how the actual game is played. If you're gonna be a character that's gonna be all about, you know, charisma and diplomacy and stuff, you better, I don't know, maybe take some bullet points and notes of how to be diplomatic, how to be charismatic, how to try to be charming and stuff and try to charm people. Maybe look up a list of 100 pickup lines. You want to be like a flirt and flirt with bar maidens or something. Or maybe write out some confident phrases like self-affirmation phrases to show the character has the willful resolve to be able to face all kinds of dangers instead of just panicking the table. Making a self-insert is fine and well and good and all, but I feel like this player is just getting way too into it and taking things a little bit too seriously. When people take themselves too seriously, when they make a self-insert and take it too seriously, it's like as if something hurts the character, they would take personal offense to it, because like, how dare you attack me instead of my character in this situation. Anyway, I'm going off the tangent. Let's continue with the story. Meanwhile, instead of ever engaging with the game and trying to progress his character or accomplish things, he spends the whole run chasing women and pursuing his sexual fantasies. Every time, without fail, he'd be ultra submissive to female characters, both PC and NPC alike. Max willpower, by the way. Try to get them to coddle him through excessive kindness and acts of service to them. Maybe they have the willpower to stay submissive forever. Have the willpower to be a proud, submissive femboy, or whatever they are. I don't know that femboy, honestly. Have the willpower to be submissive and proud of it, I guess. I don't know. The game has minor mechanics for legacies or bloodlines. I didn't think much of it at first, but he really just did nothing other than play Bachelor and try to achieve insignificant goals that don't actually affect anything important. He did almost nothing of importance. Clearly, they were looking for a dating simulator where they can show off the riz instead of play your game specifically. I think the player was just looking for an experience that you're just not gonna provide. Naturally, when bad things start to happen around him due to ignoring problems and hoping that they sort themselves out on their own, he's shocked and utterly dismayed that his interactions had consequences. He makes a plan to just commit self-unalive and make a new character after tying up some loose ends where he wanted to deal with for better circumstances somewhere else in the world. So, wait, are you telling me they're literally like, okay, things are gonna get tough, I'm just gonna delete my character and just start over? I guess? Why? Why not just deal with the consequences? Also, if you're playing a game where actions have consequences and you can't handle the fact that actions are gonna have consequences, then why are you in that sort of game? We're not playing a more, you know, light-hearted game where there are no consequences to the actions. And I mean, listen, I would find it kind of boring not to have consequences to the actions. I feel like actions have consequences is like the most potent excitement that you can have out of TTRPG. You would do a thing and then it affects how things go on from there. That to me is like the most rawest potential of amazingness when it comes to playing a TTRPG. The fact that your character's actions could influence the world around them that you're playing in. Oh, just absolute cinema with that. It's just the best thing. I absolutely love it. But if you can't handle that your actions are going to have consequences, why do you join a game that's going to have all these actions have consequences when you probably want to just play a lighthearted dating sim? Just look for a lighthearted dating sim game. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are running a very chill, relaxed, roleplay heavy dating sim games out there where you do nothing but just rizz up a bunch of bar maidens. While doing that though, he gets into an in-game conflict with another one of the players, who I learned only after the fact that he was unwelcomely trying to discuss fetishes with her and win her over with gifts and compliments, whose character has every reason to torment and do inhumane things to his. Before I continue, hopefully they at least ask like, hey, is it cool if we talk about fetishes together? Because in this situation, probably not that okay at all. Probably not okay in the slightest here in this situation. This is getting juicier by the second. There's still more to read through, so let's get to it. She does, and he completely melts down. He accuses everyone, including me and the other players, of being vindictive and that we're just rubbing salt in the wounds. Complains that the game is too hard to follow because NPCs are too subtle and you can't tell whether someone is lying or that they react to certain things by getting upset. Basically, just admitted that he was confused the entire time, didn't want to ask us about it or get help, wanted the game to be more obvious and guided. Despite the fact that we told him repeatedly that the point of the game is open-ended interactive choice and consequences. And then he rage quit, citing that he's just not ready for this kind of world right now, even though he fully agreed to the content warning. but apparently completely clocked out the moment that they happened to him. So yeah, guy wanted to play a charming genius who everyone wants to bang, got pissed off when that didn't work out for him. If the player wants to look for that sort of game, I'm sure they can find another game out there, but you gave him the outline, the general consensus, the general session 0 warning, like disclaimer, warning, this game is gonna have these specific themes. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes? Come aboard. No? It's okay. Find a different game. And the player chose specifically to go out and join your specific game. But if they knew that was going to happen, why did they agree to it in the first place? Did they not take you seriously? Did not think that you're going to be serious? Did they think, oh no, it's fine. I'm sure the game is going to make it a total dating sim where I'm the brightest star in the world. When it turns out they really weren't a star, but more like a fly on the wall that doesn't do much. A wallflower. A wallflower is probably the nicest way I can put it. The less of a star in the sky, the brightest star in the sky, more of a wallflower. It's kind of tacked on, didn't really do much, didn't really interact with anything, couldn't handle the consequences, and sort of just wilted away. I'm sure the player will find some sort of a dating sim that can actually be the main character in there, be the suavest person of them all that can flirt up all the ladies and talk about fetishes. We covered that really briefly. That's kind of odd. I mean, like, listen, if you get to know somebody and you're comfortable talk about these kind of topics, that's fine. But not if it's somebody that you just met through a TTRPG and sound like, so I like feet because feet turn me on. That just gets strange, real weird. I don't want to assume that the player specifically talked about feet, but let's say, for example, you're playing a D&D game with somebody. Like, say, for example, you and me are playing a D&D game, right? And you don't know me that well, but suddenly, I don't know, I just want like, so hey, what are your thoughts about toes? Do you like toes? I find them so sexy, delectable. You'd probably be a little bit weirded out. Unless you're also going to toes and you're like, holy hell, I made a best friend. Wow. But in that situation, that'd be such a rare occasion to happen. And even if you weren't to toes, you'll probably still find it kind of weird that somebody just talk about toes out of nowhere. How do they know that you have a thing for toes? Nobody knows. Either way, let me know your thoughts about the story and the player in the comment section below. I'd like to see what you guys think of it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I missed out something important. Let's get to the next story for today. DM overusing AI. I'll try to keep it brief, but I will undoubtedly fail. I'm currently playing in a game where the DM uses AI extensively. NPC responses, narrative bits, coming up with side quests on the fly, or more recently, telling us what our characters are doing and saying. It all bothers me a little, but taking player agency away is quite aggravating. Okay, the biggest crime here, I mean, yeah, using AI for literally everything. Like, dude, do you not have a brain? Can you just not just be like, you see in far distance a large mountain? Do you have to really like put in the prompt for AI to be able to spit something out for you? Like, yeah, you don't have to give like a Shakespearean prose or anything, but just do it in your own way. I'm not exactly a Shakespearean person out there, but I try my best to give some sort of description. At times I fumble. Everybody fumbles. It's okay. It's fine. You're doing your best. You're just a person. You're just a human being like everybody else having fun at the table. Taking the agency away, however, is indeed a problem for sure. Let's see how bad it gets. The NPC responses or narrative portions are generally 1 to 2 paragraphs in length at least, and bog the game down with over-explanation and over-the-top hyperbole. Everything thrums with resonance, is cloaked with dust of bad memories, or burns with a power long faded, etc., etc. Everything is a riddle inside an enigma, wrapped in mystery. Basically, it all ends up in a big nothing burger, because if everything is super important and fantastical, then nothing is. I just tune out wherever he starts explaining anything. Well, yeah, because AI can only spit out the same thing if you're asking for a more like specific, like extra prosy, extra deep, rich lore response that of course is gonna keep spitting out the same thing at you over and over again. That's not how you use AI in this situation. If you did want to use AI, maybe a brief description of a place, just a brief thing, so you got something to work with. Or maybe, hey, if you want to be able to, I don't know, be able to get a general description about a place, maybe write it out yourself. I don't mind if somebody, let's say, for example, writes out a description or an inspiration about a specific NPC. Like, give me an inspiration for this specific NPC and just cherry pick some of the bits until it gets into a character that you specifically want to. I do get to a specific point where you make a character that you want from all the bits until it feels really your own. But in this situation, they're literally just, hey, ChatGPT, give me a response, and then read out 2-paragraph thing where everything is rotten mysteries. If everything is rotten mysteries, then nothing is at this point. With running player responses and actions, we'll roleplay something between ourselves, and he'll completely retcon it, or at least track on how he wanted us to play it out with whatever the AI tells him he said we did. Last week, another player and I were role-playing a disagreement, which wasn't anything Oscar-worthy, but it was fine. Apparently, per the DM and his AI, my character needed to make an impassioned speech about pain and stuff. It was very frustrating. If your DM is relying on every single description and every single interaction to be have to AI-fied, I don't think you want to play with that kind of person, because if they can't handle a situation that is going on in the moment and can just be the DM in a situation and have to have ChatGPT to be your DM, then I think they failed as a DM. But let's say, for example, it's one thing if, let's say, you want to create a magical tome and you want to give a little bit of like various different flavor text, but you can't come up with inspiration. So you ask ChatGPT, Twitter's Grok, or whatever you like to use out there, hey, I need inspiration for description for this lore item, and kind of like, this is supposed to be found in this place and it's supposed to be belong to this lich or whatever. I need some sort of flavor text description to kind of start off with, some sort of basis, and it could spit at you various different proses and sentences. Some of it can definitely feel a little bit more generic, a little bit too AI worthy, but then you can look at that, get inspired by it, and put what it wrote out and like cherry pick some of the stuff you really like that it kind of came up with ideas, and then put it in your own words. That is a proper way to use AI in a situation. What the DM is doing here is saying, all right, ChatGPT, my players had an argument. Describe the argument in as a DM and stuff, and then just basically read out what they wrote out, and it's going off of context that it doesn't even know. It doesn't know what the player said because it didn't give it what the player said. It's going off of basic rules. Computer programs, computers in general, in self, generally are stupid. They can only work with an input you give them. If you give them dumb input, they give you a dumb response. That's how they work. I have a degree in IT and I work with programming and stuff. Computers will only spit out what you give them, and if you give them a bad response or give them bad information, they'll give you a bad response. Relying on AI to give descriptions of what happened last time is absurd, especially if it's something you're supposed to be able to do as a competent, even a remotely competent DM. Even a competent DM can still wrestle the way out of a paper bag in order to describe the two players had a fight. Done. That's it. I'm not looking for advice necessarily as a standard route, or just talking to the DM won't work, because we've tried it and it appears he generally doesn't give a rat's ass what everyone thinks. It would likely be a waste of time. I'm most likely going to end up leaving the table. I'm just here to bitch and moan about it. If any current or future DMs are considering using AI in this way, for the sake of your players, please don't. That is all. Update. I love the game. I was already heavily leaning this way, but the response here helped vindicate my feelings about it. Thanks everyone for helping with the last little push I needed. Thank you to everybody who responded to OP in a specific post, and always remember, no D&D is better than bad D&D, and in a situation where everything is DMified and the DM couldn't care less about anything, definitely don't play with somebody like that. That's a waste of your time, your precious patience, and just a waste of everything. You'll be withering away playing in this game, doing absolutely nothing fun. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thank you so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.